very warm welcome, everybody. I'm just so delighted as I see uh, beloved friends and family from all over the world chiming in. We're in kind of the midway mark of the Truth and Reconciliation Week 2026. I'm your host, Nilima Bhatt. We've been doing this for the last 7 years to say what can citizens do to heal the collective trauma they carry from their cultures. Because pain that is not transformed is transferred and transmitted to the next generations. And so we have a very special session lined up for us today. I had put the word out to so many people, and let's just do a little bit of structure to this conversation because I want to make sure we cover the good ground that can be covered in the hour we have, after which there will be about 15 minutes for Q&A, and people can put in their questions into the chat box, and you can take them for about 15 minutes. So when we speak of partition, we speak of borders, separation, and historical wounds. And today I want to explore a different possibility. What can an Indigenous Hawaiian tradition that has carried its own history of trauma and healing teach us about restoring relationship and perhaps even healing the wounds of India's partition? So today's TRW dialogue is called From Partition to Peace, Lessons from Ho'oponopono. And it is my great pleasure to welcome Kumu Ramsay, an Indigenous wisdom keeper, Ho'oponopono master, and systems strategist, whose work brings together ancestral Hawaiian wisdom, healing, and systems transformation. I met Kumu in June in Japan at the Japan Convergence, and I see wonderful friends we made there also on today's call. And we really got along well. It felt like kindred spirits, and I invited him to come and speak at this Truth and Reconciliation event, and to my great pleasure and honor, he said yes. So, Kumu, welcome. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Aloha, Lima, thank you so much. And it was a great pleasure, in fact, not just meeting, but also receiving this kind invitation to join your group this evening, or this morning, I should say. Thank you so much.
I think people are joining in from every time zone, from all over. So it's morning for me, it's yesterday night for you, and
That's right.
everyone else is somewhere around that, right?
Right.
So let's begin. I've been
Sure.
waiting for this for so long. So before we speak about Ho'oponopono as a
Yes.
practice, I'd
Mhm.
like to understand the history from which this wisdom emerges. So Hawaii itself has experienced profound disruption, dispossession, cultural trauma, and the
Correct.
loss of sovereignty. So could you tell us about the historical wounds that the Hawaiian people have carried and how these experiences have shaped the way you understand healing and
Sure.
reconciliation?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Hawaii, the islands, the archipelago, um, were occupied by my ancestors who were really the Polynesian voyagers. And it's said that when we touched the lands in Hawaii, that's when we became Hawaiian. But the reality is that at some point in time, through feudal wars and battles between communities, King Kamehameha in the 1795 unified the islands under one rule, really for the first time, and bringing peace really to his new island kingdom. His son, Kamehameha III, King Kauikeoli, in 1840 established the first constitutional monarchy, thus the Hawaiian Kingdom as a constitutional monarchy, the first non-European nation state in the world, equal to England, France, and all the other nation states at the time. Well, by 1893, settlers that had come to the islands decided that that type of government wasn't going to work for them. So they actually overthrew their own queen. Now, in contemporary language, that would be considered treason. At any rate, they started a republic wasn't authorized by the people. They then, in turn, had a relationship with the United States, and they turned what they had taken from the Hawaiian Kingdom over to the United States. So, for all intents and purposes, the Hawaiian Kingdom continues to be an occupied state after 133 years. Now, our kingdom was established really uh, so that anyone who was loyal to the principles of what we would call Aloha, reciprocity agreement of freedom, having a relationship with the land and one another. So it wasn't just an indigenous culture. It wasn't just the Kanakamole, the individuals of our place, but anyone really that came to the islands. Um, a lot of Asian communities that came to the islands at some point in time, Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, and then eventually Caucasians as well. So you could say that the Hawaiian Kingdom was a very eclectic global community. In 1893, when it was overthrown, not only were our culture practices, but also our social, political, and I would say very progressive principles that were leading the world at the time were overthrown. So today, in 2026, the descendants of the monarchical family, the dynastic family, continue to exist and have maintained their continuity of at least their sovereignty according to international laws. But for all intents and purposes, we operate under the de facto government called the State of Hawaii and under U.S. Democratic Republic principles. But the Hawaiian Kingdom, as a constitutional monarchy, exists and continues to exist under what they call state continuity of international law. So there is a separation to a certain degree. Now, Ho'oponopono, the principles of healing and restoration, have been part of our customs and our practices prior to this devastating effect. And this goes back ancestral for many, many generations. So that's a high overview,
Okay,
Nilima.
thank you. And so you said the first settlers who came, who overthrew, where did they come from?
Well, we had most of them were American that came from the continent. Now, mind you, the first missionaries arrived in 1820 from Boston. And this is right after King Kamehameha had unified the islands in 1810. So 1820, when they arrived, he had just passed really for a year. 1819 is when he passed. And so for about a year, there was no official religion. Queen Ka'ahumanu, his wife, decided that what was going on at the time needed to change. And so when the missionaries arrived in 1820, they became the descendants of those individuals who eventually overthrew the government.
Right. So Christian missionaries, when you say missionaries.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So against that history,
Mhm.
Ho'oponopono has emerged as a practice of restoring right relationship, from what
Correct.
I understand. It's widely boiled down to 4 affirmations. Please forgive me. I am sorry. I love you. I thank you. So let's step back. What does Ho'oponopono actually mean beyond the simplified idea of forgiveness? And
Yeah.
what is the process asking us to take responsibility for? And what happens when we genuinely enter into it, right? So I'm going to ask you to give us the background and the depth of what this practice is. And
Sure.
then can you lead us into a simple practice we can do right now? I think that is why so many people have joined the call today.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian principle of making right, putting things into proper order, which would be really an alignment of things. Like most things in Hawaii and our culture, it's a spiritual principle that has physical implications as well as emotional and mental ones, but it's a spiritual practice. The name itself, Ho'oponopono, is supported by what we call our spiritual language. The utterance of any particular vowel of o, or u calls upon a spiritual principle. So the word Ho'oponopono calls upon the spiritual essence and the elements of earth, foundation, base, anything that is more of a solid substance. So, which means that whenever you find yourself in uncertainty, in a condition where things are wavering and no longer certain, the Ho'oponopono practice is about realigning, finding that foundation again. So when you break the word down in Hawaiian principles, the root language, you were looking at a word that says, or a concept that says to unify, to put together the word ho'o. But sometimes you have to go into a deep, dark place when pain, anger, frustration lives, and that word is po. That often lives in our minds, in our heads, which is the word po'o. So within the first two or three words or roots, you have ho'oponopono, ho'opo, which is digging in. That's the middle word, o'o. To o'o, to dig into the earth, the o, where it's dark and sometimes painful. So ho'oponopono, the idea of digging into a dark place, something sometimes painful, separating, restoring that alignment. Pono, that's the condition of correctness, the proper correctness. And not just between you and me and another person, but with an internal correctness, the personal well-being, spiritual well-being. So when we say pono, that is really an alignment between you and divinity, the creative energy and or source, which basically suggests that when one is in alignment with source, there is no scarcity, there is no fear, there is no pain, there is no dis-ease or disorder. So Ho'oponopono is a spiritual practice to realign when you have dis-ease, disorder, disconnection, and discontentment. The word Ho'opono versus Ho'oponopono. Ho'opono means to do correctly, the first time. So an example would be if you and I were throwing a gathering, we would clean all the plates. We'd put everything back in proper order. So the next time we'd come back, and the following day, everything would be in proper order. Ho'opono. However, we didn't do that, then the potential that someone would get sick from eating off of dirty plates, they would require ho'oponopono, a correction, a medicinal remedy. We would have to call in the cleaners. We'd have to do something to correct that process. That is the word ho'oponopono. Now, the four mantras you talk about is really a modern derivative of what originally was a cleansing process, a removal of the memory, the removal of the pain from oneself, rather than looking outside of oneself and trying to correct the behavior of someone outside of yourself. If we don't correct inside, then we may actually satisfy the need between the person in front of us. But eventually, that problem will resurface in another relationship or in another time because we never did the Ho'oponopono process of cleansing within us, but all we did was remedy between the person that is in front of us. Essentially, it's like wiping the mirror when really the smudge is on my face, right? And so Ho'oponopono is a mirror process that says whatever I see in the world outside is somehow a reflection of me. Therefore, at some point in time, if I don't like what I see in front of me or what I'm experiencing, then the process says I should start working on myself first. So that is the process of Ho'oponopono in a nutshell.
Wow. As you're speaking, Kumu, I'm reminded again what a joy it was to meet you in Japan. And I heard you speak, and you rarely meet someone who has the depth and the lived experience and has the ability to articulate it, not just well, but with so much charm. And so, yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Well,
It's
I will
always
thank my ancestors and the process of Ho'oponopono because if
right.
I'm enjoying any of that success, I have to basically attest it to that. Thank you.
Yeah. And something happened. You said when we met, I remember you saying, you're using your language obviously with such a fluency when we don't know these words. Something
Correct.
happened. You said, oh, then we have to pono it. They're like, oh, what do you mean by that? You have to pono it. So I think what you just now said is, am I understanding correctly, that something is currently broken, like the plates were left uncleaned, So we
That's correct.
have to clean them up, right?
That's correct. And I would emphasize that there's a tendency for us to see our personal relationships in a similar way as being broken and needing fixing. But foundational to the principles of Ho'oponopono, and more importantly, the exchange of what we call aloha, the principle of giving and receiving spiritually, it's really not about fixing anything. It's really about healing. So people aren't broken. Relationships may be, but they need to be healed. So we don't fix people. We heal people. We heal ourselves. So if anything, and as much as it's often classified as a problem solving or conflict resolution process, Ho'oponopono is really a healing process that really starts with self, ancestors, the sources from which most of our anxiety and pain and discomfort might come from in our deepest memories, those that we can remember consciously, but also subconsciously. So as we were talking, the observation was that when something is out of order, you need to make it pono, make it
Mm.
proper again, which is actually contextual. It's temporal. Under this sun, this moon, there are certain things that need to be done. Under tomorrow's moon, we have to do something different. And so, to avoid any frustration, we should be in alignment with those particular conditions, with those particular relationships and people, which means moment by moment. To think that I'm going to carry everything from yesterday into tomorrow and days after this with certainty and continuity really kind of misses the point. It forgets that you and I and other people have different relationships and they require their own special attention. And this is the difference between pono and making something the same all the time. Similar, but not same.
I love that. You've added a new nuance which I hadn't heard earlier. So in India, we have the concept of each to his swabhav and his swadharma, or her
Mm,
swabhav and her swadharma, like each to their nature. And the dharma of the moment and their own dharma, right? So each moment also has a dharma, and the relationship of that moment, in that
correct.
moment there is a dharma. What was okay yesterday between two people may not be needed in relationship in that particular way today. And so to be constantly present to what is life asking of me to make pono, is that right?
That's correct. And, you know, we even talked about things as being place-based,
Right.
appropriate to wherever you are in the world. As you recall, we talked about regionality, bioregionality, the things that go on environmentally in a particular place. And one of the challenges that we're experiencing in the contemporary world is that we have an economic model that is imposing itself all over the world, or political policies that may not align with the environmental or social or cultural environment in which we find ourselves. So consequently, that imposition causes disconnect and dis-ease. And sometimes when we realign to those places, me with my environment and you with your own, we find that we now begin to synchronize once again with that particular place, the customs, the practices, and yes, even the language. And so Ho'oponopono is not just for me and you as individuals, but collectively on what I would refer to as island Earth, an opportunity for us to all reconnect to our place called island Earth in a way that is reflective of our specific relationships rather than suggesting that my solution in Hawaii is the same solution for you in India or anywhere else. That would be pono'ole in the absence of alignment because I'm now imposing upon you my practices as well as they work for me, but they may not work for you. And I think this is what's happened globally when we have distribution systems, supply chains, different economic models that may work very well in one place, but
Yeah.
really cause a disruption in others. So the practice of Ho'oponopono, I think, is a global practice, not just for those of us living in the islands of Hawaii, but the island of Earth.
Absolutely. And what I love about your culture is that it has language and it has such
Does.
simple language. You just said pono ole. Okay, great. Because these are all elixirs that come out
Yeah.
of centuries and millennia of a civilization. And then these come down to one word like ikigai or dharma or,
That's correct.
Tikkun Olam. So we have cultures who have come out with these one or two word ideas that contain, they're like seeds of a complete healing solution,
That's right. That's right.
It's medicine. Each of these words are medicine now.
They
So
really
let's
are.
dive in before we go into the bigger story that Ho'oponopono can help with. Let's please take us through a simple practice so we know how it works for something that we are dealing with.
Sure. As I mentioned to you earlier, if you consider it like a mirror, in fact, the word aka, if everyone would just say that to themselves, AKA aka. Aka is a reflection. It's a shadow, a shimmer, if you would. When you look into a river or a bowl that is calm, you see your own reflection. So when we connect to others, that aka is what we're experiencing. So if I want to improve my relationship with you and somehow that shimmer is now blurred or obscured, we don't put our hands on the pond to stop the ripples, but we back off. We step back, as the old proverb would be. Step away from the pond and let the waters calm. Underneath all that, there is a principle which I'd ask you to share with me now and everyone else listening, and you can repeat it silently to yourself or aloud if you want. It goes simply like this. And Nilima, maybe you and I can exchange this while everyone else does. All right. So repeat after me. What is it about me
What is it about me
that allows me
that allows me
to see you
to see you
in a way that bothers me
in a way that bothers me
about you?
about you?
What is it about me that allows me to see in you what bothers me about you? See, that principle, once everyone grasps that, we can start the process of Ho'oponopono because what it really is doing is reminding us that whatever is bothering us, whatever seems to be a dis-ease, disorder, or an ailment, is really inside of us. It's what I like to call an inside job. It's because we're being triggered by the words, we're being triggered by the actions, the colors, the sounds, the smells outside of us. But the reality is that the impact is inside of us. And it's tied to a memory, which is tied to an emotion, which is tied to action or reaction. And so if you're going to do the process, and we can do this here, we start here with us first to realize that you're not making me angry. You said something that may have triggered anger memories within me. Therefore, if I don't want to be angry when I'm with you, it's not you changing your words as much as it's me changing my memory, if that makes any sense. Does that try?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So the process then, if we were to do it and everyone can do it, if there's something that's bothering right now, whether it's a person, a condition, a location, an activity, place that in the statement where we said, what is it about me that's allowing me to see you? That you change it. What is it about this thing? What is it about this color, this space, this person, this job, or this thing? What is it about that that is triggering inside of me? And how do I change that? So this is how we do it. I will ask each of you to consider what that might be. If you want to write it on a piece of paper, you can, but let's just hold that out. And it's simply this. My ancestors and I forgive you and your ancestors for anything that we may have done or that you may have done to injure us in word, deed, or action, intentionally or unintentionally. And in the spirit of Aloha, my ancestors and I ask you for forgiveness for whatever we may have done to create a condition in your life of pain, discomfort, dis-ease, illness, anxiety that brought us together this evening on this opportunity, in this opportunity, to restore balance between our ancestors as well as ourselves. And once again, if everyone would focus on that one thing for a moment, please forgive me and my ancestors for whatever we may have done to create a problem, a dis-ease, a discourse, a disconnection in your lives that led to pain, discomfort that requires healing. Please forgive us. In the reciprocity of that, the spirit of aloha, of giving and receiving, to make whole, to bring you back into oneness and healing. My ancestors and I forgive you and your ancestors for anything that you may have done intentionally or unintentionally, with meaning or not, that has caused the eha, the pain, the discomfort in my life and the life of my ancestors, and even my descendants. And that we forgive you, your ancestors, as you forgive us. For in this moment, we now can move forward with clarity, with peace, harmony, but above all, forgiveness. This is the practice of Ho'oponopono. Yes, there are cleansing practices, but right here and now, if we commit ourselves to that peace, that harmony, that letting go, then I'm making a commitment to my descendants, as well as yours, that I won't be taking that into the next room with me, that I won't hold you accountable, for you will hold yourself accountable, as I hold myself accountable for my behaviors, my practices, and my thoughts. This is the intention, and this is the method of Ho'oponopono. And I think you can see, Nalima, that's far more than just four particular statements about loving, forgiving, and understanding. It takes all of those things to do what we just did.
Wow. I have done Ho'oponopono for some years. It's a very popular practice around the world. Psychotherapists use it with their clients.
Right.
And I think it's the work of, it's called self Ho'oponopono, and it's been shared in
Right.
books by Hugh Len, I think, who's passed
Yes.
away.
Yeah. Haleaka Hulan.
Yes. So the way I simplified it, and you're right, that you can only simplify, it's like simplicity on the other side of complexity, that having understood what all you just shared, having digested that, then to apply these statements as a way to distill it into a very sharp healing technique or process or practice for yourself. So the way I have done it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that I would say whatever it is in me that's causing this discomfort, disease, whatever
Yeah.
it is in me that's causing this, I speak to that me. Please forgive me. I am sorry. I love you. I thank you. And I welcome us back into oneness or the light or wholeness, right? Like there's a part of me that had
That's right.
separated that I'm
That's
now
right.
bringing back into my own light of oneness and wholeness. So is that right?
Yeah. The way you've just phrased it, um, which I think others may not hear, is that you're focusing on repairing and restoring yourself. When you say me, I love you, the you you're referring to is the inner you, the mini me, if you would. So when you were saying these four concepts in the contemporary time, we're really referring to a process of cleansing internally first. What I've run into in many cases is individuals are using this, but they're applying it to the person or the thing outside of them. So someone may cause them harm or anger, and they go to the four principles and they say, I forgive you, the person outside. I love you, the person outside, right? So the externality is being forgiven, when in reality, it's the internal piece, which you've just done, that Ho'oponopono is based on. Now, don't get me wrong. There are things outside of us that require healing and improvement. But the process itself says that when I begin to shift, when my lens of reality begins to change, what appears to be changing outside of me isn't really, it's because I'm changing. And the way that I'm behaving as a result of that change is elicits a different response from the person across from me, who yesterday may have been angry with me. But because I removed any sign of anger from myself, they are no longer displaying that anger. So it looks like they've changed. But in reality, as you do the process and cleanse with self, all of a sudden the world begins to change. To my point earlier, if you stand in front of a mirror and see a blemish on the mirror, that blemish is really on you, not on the mirror. You can wipe the mirror all day long, but this blemish will still be on you in every other relationship you have. So you're absolutely right. The way you're applying it is the intention of the process as it was restored and renewed by Auntie Morna Nalamaku Simeona, who both Haleakala, Hulen, and I were in the same cohort with her as our instructor, as our teacher. You've muted yourself, Nilima. I can't hear you.
I'm going to open the room for just 5 minutes.
Sure.
If anyone has a clarifying question, this is so important. So
Yeah.
could someone please ask their question, and I'm going to go off video then. Okay.
Yes, please. And Nilima, if you would call them out for me, that would be helpful.
Sure. Nivedita, could you handle that?
Yes, Nilima, I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see some familiar names. It's like Auntie Sarah Quick over there. Aloha. Aloha, Lena. Good to see you.
Rashi Bunny has a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Would you lead us to a tiny practice session now, dear Ramsay?
Take you to a practice now?
Yeah, would you lead us to a tiny practice session now? Yeah.
Okay.
From Rashi Bunny.
Okay. That's kind of what we're trying to do here previously, but essentially what you want to be doing, because it's a rather deep process, is that you want to connect to your spiritual self, your identity. And so we always open with a pule or a prayer, and that prayer connects you to source. You would then begin to ask for forgiveness. And there's 3 or 4 levels of that. First of yourself, then of the person that's outside, and then for any karmic memories and connections with those individuals. And that's when you remove those, right? So let me open with a pule or prayer, as Auntie Morna would have shared with us. Yeah. And she referred to it as the I am prayer, meaning connection to the source. Omakua, uhane unihipili, the family of internal connection of mind, body, and spirit. Yeah. Puumayau mai ka poiluka ma lama lama. O wauno ka ha ka mauli ola. O wauno ka poho ke ka ele mawaho na iki a pau. Ka I ke kino iho na mea pau. Ka iau I ku upi o anu e nui mawaho no ka ia pau. Ka ho mau mau manao ami na mea pau. Wauna ko hoa me ka ha. He huna kamakani nahi nahi. Ka hua huna o kumalipo. Wauna ka I. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. I ask now that the divine presence and connection, Father, Mother, Child, we ask that we remove all of the anger, pain, and discomfort that is within us that has created this discomfort, this anger, this pilikia that might be on between us. And to help us to remove and restore, I ask that you do what we call a ha breathing, which is bringing in mana that begins to release this. And for today, we will do 3 rounds of breathing. Yeah. You would inhale and count for 7 counts, hold for 7 counts, release for 7 counts, and hold for 7 counts. That would be 1 round. This evening, we will do 3 rounds. Okay. So go ahead and inhale, and the object is to bring in the mana, the life energy within ourselves that just should be there. It allows our hair to grow, our eyes to see, our skin to rejuvenate. Yeah. So 3 rounds of ha. Inhale for 7, hold for 7, release for 7, and hold for 7. Repeat 3 times. So again, calling upon that opening prayer that I just did, we ask Father, Mother, and Child, Aumakua Uhane Unihipili, to come together as a family of one. That the Uhane, the conscious mind, and Unihipili, subconscious mind, begin to restore a relationship and bringing the information, the anger of memory, the memory of anger, the memory of dis-ease, disorder. And we ask that we now, Aumokua, the Father, take this to divinity, yeah, Ke'akua, and place it there with Ke'akua. And ask that this memory, this anger, this frustration, this disconnect, any barrier or obstacle to our moving forward, be removed and replaced with healing energy, something that aligns with us. We ask that this be released, let go, and most importantly, transmuted. For we don't want our negative energy to be the energy for the next person, but always improving for the next. And similarly, we would do this with anyone outside of ourselves that has caused us harm, as we may have caused harm to them. So we ask their forgiveness for anything that we may have done from the beginning of our time, from the time of creation to the moment that has created a separation, that has created pain, discomfort, and anger within them. We ask for their forgiveness as we then turn around and ask and give their forgiveness. We forgive them in the same process. But we ask Mother, Father, Child, Aumaku Uhane Unihipili, as the family within, to connect with divinity, source of Keakua. Our self-personal cleansing, whatever that I have done to myself, to my family, to those around me, those memories that I have carried through time. This is the ancestral wounds that have followed me through 7, 14, 21 generations. So I am my ancestors and my ancestors are me, and I release and ask for the divine source of connection and clearing for this purpose. Yeah. For we've turned it over for divinity. It is done. Let it be. And so when I ask that everyone does 3 rounds of healing one more time, or breaths, and in the process, think of this, release, let this go. Cleanse, transmute, shift this energy to pure energy, to pure love, to pure aloha. Remove the anger, the pain, the discomfort, the eha. and let it be peace, harmony, and aloha. Breathe 3 times. Inhale for 7 counts. Hold for 7 counts. Exhale for 7 counts. Hold for 7 counts. Repeat 3 times.
Kumu, that was absolutely amazing. And I see questions coming, but let's complete what we wanted to do on this call. And I think perhaps the individual questions will get answered. So from personal healing to collective healing, you've already taken us there, that when we heal ourselves, we're actually healing an entire inner constellation of our ancestors and people they were engaged with as well, because the trauma began way before us, perhaps, right? So one question was,
Sure.
how does healing within a person, a family, or a community begin to transform the larger field of relationship? I think you've answered that. But more importantly, how do we work with ancestral or inherited pain and not risk being re-traumatized by it?
Yeah.
Are we keeping it alive? Are we somehow pedestalizing pain and grief by keeping it alive? How much to take on without getting consumed by it? Because these are energies, these are powerful archetypal energies of trauma and pain and suffering and memory. So yeah, how do we deal with it without re-traumatizing ourselves?
Yeah, one of the things that's happened in our time is we have an attachment to blame and fame. So oftentimes we look outside and the cause of what we're experiencing is there, even to the point of pointing to ancestors. When we say, I'm experiencing ancestral trauma, for instance, the reality is we're experiencing our trauma. Our ancestors' trauma is theirs. There's not much I can do about someone else's trauma. I can only do something about my trauma. And so their trauma, which may have impacted the way I experience the world, my trauma, starts with me. And so what we're doing is we're asking forgiveness and forgiving them as well. My great grandfather, 7 times removed, 7 generations, 14 generations, because we're not quite sure where along that line that energy has actually started and is now with me. If I don't free my ancestors, that would be allowing the leak in the wall to continue while I'm mopping the floor around me. The object is to release that. And the likelihood, in the spiritual sense, is that our ancestors have been sitting there waiting for us in the future to do just that, because all they knew was what they knew. And if their action at that time was intended to be in benefit for us, and yet things changed and that was not the case, I don't think they're sitting there unapologetic, but instead have been saying for generations and eons, please forgive me. And yet we in our present mind call it an ancestral trauma, when really it's our trauma. And so by us releasing it, we then release them. And in the process of releasing them, we also release our descendants. And so imagine that you're standing on a stream and the debris that is gathering around your ankles actually started upstream many, many generations ago. And unless we clean that upstream source, it'll continue to follow and be entered into the stream. Now, here's the point. If we clean that stream today, because it's my trauma, then that won't go downstream to our descendants. But I've now cleaned up time. This actually becomes time travel. By cleaning the past, I clean the present. By cleaning the present, I clean the future. This is the power of Ho'oponopono, as Auntie Morna and the Kopuna that mentored me shared, is that when we take responsibility, accountability for ourselves, then we begin to release others from that accountability. The way to think about it is that the past is always there. The future is forever coming. but we can only experience the past and the future in the now. So one way to look at it is there's always and forever, now or never. The object is to be in the now, to be in the present. Yesterday's now led to today's now. Today's now will be tomorrow's now. In that present moment, we take responsibility, accountability, and begin to release what's in us. Because the real problem is a memory, not what we're confronted with. That's the symptom. If all we do is work on symptoms, the problem will resurface again and again and again.
You're bringing us to the heart of this whole work, Kumu, and time has flown. So I want to bring us to the collective trauma of partition. So
Yes.
can we apply this to India's partition? Let us now bring this directly into the heart of Truth and Reconciliation Week. You know, the partition of India created enormous wounds between
Yes.
India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and within families and communities. Yesterday, we heard Surya Roy and Neela Saxena talk about what their families went through, the partition of Bengal. Horrific, absolutely horrific stories. So these stories live on in us because we are still carrying them across generations. Those stories are told and passed on. So if we were to look at the wounds of India's partition through the lens of Ho'oponopono, where would you suggest we begin? And one life at a time, one community at a time, can we get practical? What would you do?
Sure. Consider this, that a partition is just a division, if we can bring that definition. And that division could easily be a wall. It could be a moat. In this case, it could be the distance of time. The partition is removed when we become more focused in the moment and not thinking about the past or even thinking about the future, but being in the moment. And by releasing whatever pain and discomfort I have and being able to forgive that person in the past, not so much for what they're doing, but the impact upon me. Forgiveness is letting go. They're still accountable. The person that may have injured me yesterday is still accountable to his or her ancestors. But in this moment, I remove that partition, that separation, by unifying myself internally first, because the partition is a reflection of my spiritual, mental, and physical dislocation. When those three become aligned, that's when you become one mind. You become mindful, complete, and whole. If I'm maintaining and holding anger or emotional pain or a spiritual disconnection, then I'm technically out of my mind because I'm no longer in the single mind of peace and harmony. So pono is to be mindful. To be pono only is to be mindless, out of our minds. And so the object is, how do I become inside integrated again with inspiration and influence? Inside job. Everything is about inside. And so if someone wants to repair that, they have to start here, not there. And I can tell you stories, and one big one with Auntie Morna, how she actually worked through the end of her physical incarnation in 1992 to bring down the Berlin Wall. Now, that may seem far-fetched for people, but something that physical actually came down with the spiritual work that Auntie Morna did for the last 4 or 5 years of her life while she lived in Poland. I was there. I saw her. I experienced her language. She said she was working on something big. Little did we know. So I like to suggest that that physical thing that's in front of us is a manifestation of our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions. These are the symptoms. The problem is within us. And if we can release that problem within us, we'll begin to see the shifting in the world outside of us. These are the deeper principles of Ho'oponopono. And when practiced at this level, we begin to see a collective shift. Yes, in India, in Hawaii, and other places in the world where externalities have defined our internal realities. Like I like to tell my students, if the illusions of others is the source of your reality, then their dreams could easily become your nightmares. Be in the moment, be present, begin to hold on to those dreams, and begin to release all the things that are preventing us from realizing them. This is Pono. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And what a story, and I completely believe it that you call her Aunt Myrna,
Auntie Morna,
Auntie
Nalamaku
Myrna.
Simeona. Yes.
Yeah. So, if we were receiving her wisdom today, if she were in
Yeah.
the room, what would she say to, I mean, she's Hawaiian and she helped heal
Right.
Germany
Right.
by bringing down the wall. So what would we say to anyone in the world, including people of the Indian subcontinent? What can each one of us be doing? Are you saying every day sit down and take 10 minutes to Pono?
That's correct. We suggest people do it twice a day, once in the morning after you wake and once before you go to bed at night, because you want to be a clear mind and heart. So your mind may share with you dreams that prepare you for the day, and you're experiencing the day you don't want to take into your sleep world. So by doing the process every day, which is one of the customs that I know families would do before they ate, before they went to bed, Ho'oponopono was always done by a kupuna, an elder, who would make sure that everyone released whatever anger, pain, or discomfort they may have had, so that they wouldn't go to bed with it. It wouldn't fester and become a deep wound. And so I would suggest that that's what we do. We begin to look at how each of us is experiencing the world around us, what is causing that, and somehow begin to reflect that in us. Now, don't get me wrong. There are individuals, there is evil in the world. There are those that hold on to the desire to hurt others. The question is, why are we seeing that? What are we doing to continue to bring that into manifestation? And I'd like to suggest, as we shift our thoughts, our spiritual awareness, and what we see in the world, that will shift too. So we go from man infestations to man ifestations. The divine spirit that is manifesting energy, love, peace, and as we say in Hawaii, aloha around the world. So whether it's in India, whether it's in Hawaii, I can hold on to the anger of the past, or I can begin to embrace the peace and harmony of the future because it's starting with me today. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, and maybe after this call, I will get a few statements from you,
Sure.
just that people can use this, everything in me and my ancestors. We seek forgiveness of you and your ancestors to whatever it is that we're facing in this moment, right? The fact that we are brought to this moment and to face such a moment and such an experience,
That's correct.
we do the for both sides and ancestors on both sides.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get,
And,
I'll
and I
get
would
the
just
words
ask
from
everyone
you.
to think about this. If you were to look for a pain or discomfort that you've experienced in your past, the likelihood is you're not going to be pointing at somebody else. If anything, you'll be pointing at a place in your body where you're currently experiencing it or have experienced it, which means it's inside you and something that we can let go, own, or keep and hang on to. It really becomes an inside job.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Nelima.
Yeah. So I think you kind of you kind of spoken to this already, but if there's anything still there. So around forgiveness, accountability, and truth, there is often a fear that forgiveness means forgetting, excusing
Right.
injustice, or bypassing accountability.
Right.
So from the perspective of Ho'oponopono, how do we hold truth, responsibility, justice, grief, and forgiveness together? What does genuine reconciliation require before forgiveness can become liberating rather than another form of avoidance or worse, victimhood?
Right. I think you hit it on the head, the last part, is if we adopt the notion of victimhood. And I'll go back to the earlier statement about what is it about me that's in me? What did I bring to the situation that's enabling me now to see myself as a victim, allowing you or anyone outside to say, do, or act in a way that affects me? When we embrace that attitude, we're letting externalities shape who we are. we then are the victims of externalities, which is really a victim of my own belief system, not the belief system of the externality. So cleansing and healing starts with me, my beliefs, my assumptions, and the things I choose to move towards rather than have others move for me. The operating word in forgiveness is giving. Giving what? Giving grace, giving space, giving away whatever it is that's bothering you. Because forgiveness is about not letting other people go, but about disconnecting ourselves from whatever that thing is. It doesn't change their accountability. They still are accountable. But what it does change is that I am no longer connected to that, and I'm not taking it into the next room with me. I'm not going to pass it on to my ancestors or my descendants. I'm ending it here with me. And so the process of forgiveness, the operating word again, is to give, because when you give, that's when you get. You get what? Freedom. You get to release. You get to let go. You get to move. Forgive and forget. In order to get, you have to give what? Away the pain, the discomfort, and the anger. And when you do that, you now get the freedom to be able to move forward. That's the language. That's the game that many of us have not really learned to play because we're trying to hold the other person accountable. We want to take revenge in some cases. We want justification or that we are right. When in reality, all we need to do is be free. And that's about giving and letting go. So the big part of Ho'oponopono is letting go.
I love how you broke up forgive and forget into give and get. What do you need to give, and therefore what will you get? I love how you summarize these things into very memorable ideas that stick. These are sticky ideas to
Sticky. Right.
Thank you, Kumu. I have one last question. If we take the wisdom of Ho'oponopono seriously, what would it look like to move from a consciousness of separation toward one of relationship and aloha? Not only between individuals, but between communities and even nations.
Correct.
What would that look like? Can you describe that other side?
Well,
Because we do want to do the inner work every day, morning and evening.
yeah.
That's what we will do. But what can we hope to receive?
Yeah, I can say that I've experienced this, which is why I speak with the confidence that I do. Because as I release, the individuals or the condition that was bothering me yesterday actually goes away. There's a time where all of a sudden one day you wake up and said, that used to bother me, or that person used to bother me. And now they're no longer in my life, or I'm no longer in this place. I'm in a better place. So the challenge is looking for what we call the zero sum game, right? The one off. I'm going to do this, and that's still transactional. I did this for you, therefore you're going to do this for me. And I've done this 10 times for you, and you're still doing it. That's a transactional relationship. A relational principle is when I can release and let go, there's no reason for you to continue to hang on. Thank you for showing me. This is where your those four mantras come in. Someone bothering me, I can say, thank you for showing me this. I forgive you for the pain and discomfort. Please forgive me for creating a condition in your life that brought you here to show me this. I love you here as much as I love you. That conversation begins to shift the overall narrative between ourselves and others, but also, more importantly, ourselves whenever we're with someone else, because you're always where you're at. The problem you have is always going to be with you, not with someone else. So it's not like everybody else is having a problem with you, without you. It isn't until you are in the room that it becomes a problem. Therefore, the common denominator in all of your problems is you. If I can be releasing that, then when I no longer carry that into every room I'm in, guess what? It's not in that room anymore because I didn't bring it there. If it shows up and someone repeats the injury, the anger, then that's a good indication that some of it is still within me. And I need to start cleaning deeper. Auntie Morna would say, the splinter you see in someone else's eye comes from the log in your own. We cannot begin to recognize that thing outside of us unless there's something inside of us that connects us to that. So when we start seeing a room free of anger, discord, dis-ease, and disorder, then there's a likelihood that that is the room that we are seeing from within, because we are now mirroring the peace, harmony, justice, right, and order within ourselves. And that's what I think it'll look like. But it starts with each and every one of us. As the kupuna would say, the peace in the man, the person, brings peace to the home. The peace in the home brings peace to the community. The peace in the community brings peace to the world. If we can't find peace, harmony, education, life, and spirit in our own homes, then can we expect it outside of ourselves? So it really starts with each and every one of us, as cliche as it may sound. But it really is, I think, a foundational truth to what is pono, yeah, at least from our ancestors.
So, I've asked people to start typing into the chat box their questions, but I think I saw one already, which was something I would have asked, which is, we don't want to stay on in an abusive relationship.
Right.
Obviously, can you speak to that? If you are in an abusive relationship, doing the pono on yourself would perhaps then lead to you making decisions about not being in abusive relationships.
That's correct.
And then acting on that.
Yeah, I had several students that came to me, and I basically said, "Why are you going to go back? He's going to hurt you, or she's going to hurt you." And the answer was, "Oh, but I love him. I love her." Well, interesting enough, so you have to ask, what is the definition of love? And so we find out, then we go back in their minds and their histories, that when they were children, they saw their mothers or their fathers experiencing that kind of abuse, followed by the word, "I'm sorry, I love you." So consequently, their criteria of decision making now includes being hit, being abused, which equals love. And if you don't have being hit or abused, then you're not being loved. That is the deep, subliminal, subconscious memory that can be carried on from one generation to the next. And so to your point, that's a great example, because once I change the criteria of decision making, then all of a sudden the person that I've been looking for may actually be right next to me and have been there. But the criteria I was using did not allow me to see them, because I was expecting to be injured, harmed, or abused, because that's my history, not in just this lifetime, but in multiple lifetimes. Thus, the ancestral trauma becomes my trauma. So yes, this is how this is a very fascinating part of the human mind and the human spirit. Yeah.
We take that question. Joy was asking, how do we practice this responsibly to ourselves and to others without accidentally taking on or imposing a burden that may not be completely ours or theirs to carry? Is there a process to maintain balance between this form of self-reflection, staying in our own truth, and being supportive of others?
Absolutely. I think the important distinction is to know that oftentimes we carry burdens that aren't ours. We may have heard a story when we were younger that we made our own. Many of us have heard about the wars 2,000 years ago across the planet. We're still living those, but you and I didn't experience that war. We're experiencing the memory of that war that's been carried by others. And then we join in that memory and they make it ours. So whether it's a small battle between husband and wife, boss and employee, if I continue to repeat the story thinking it's my story, then I also think I have a responsibility to correct that story, when all I really need to do is let go and begin to realize that's not my story. So many of us are living the stories heard generations and generations. They're never our story. They're somebody else's story. And so what we can do is begin to look at, if that story is affecting me in this way, what is it about me that's allowing that story to affect me? What is my belief? What is my fear? What is my anxiety? What is my faith? And if anything, I'd like to share with everyone in the room that fear and faith are really the same thing. So the matter is where you place your faith and or your fear. And if you take the definition of something that is believed to be true, but has no evidence of being true, that's both fear and faith. So consequently, if I'm afraid of something, I have to ask myself, why am I so faithfully sure of that thing coming true that I now live this in fear? So the real question is, where do you place your faith? And if my faith is in the story of others, when do I start becoming the editor of my own story? When can I begin to write the script that I'm going to live versus living the scripts of others? This is the power of Ho'oponopono, I think.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Okay. So 2 questions from Anamrita.
Go ahead.
I'm working with young people and educational institutions in Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh, where communities carry deep historical and intergenerational wounds. From your experience, what is one practical practice or framework from Ho'oponopono that we could adapt to help young leaders build trust and foster reconciliation in such a context?
Well, first of all, like I said earlier, we don't want to deny anyone that reality. Pain is pain. Injury is injury. Was there a war? Yes. Was there a separation? Yes, by all means. But it's not happening now. I can bring it forward and have it happen now, or I can release that memory and recognize that what we're trying to do is produce the next memory. We are actually living in that time right now where there is a population that wants to hold on to the idea of an end time, an Armageddon, if you would. But if you subscribe to that story and to that narrative, there is another part, and that part is there will be 1,000 years of peace to follow. So it's a matter of where in the spectrum you choose to place yourself, either in the part of destruction or in the part of reconstruction or the part of peace. My preference is to focus on the forward, peace, and not the back, war. That's really my choice. Each of us has that choice. Now, somebody say, well, Kumu, what about the guy standing here with a gun? I still have a choice. My choices may be limited. But the question now says, why am I finding myself once again in the company of someone with a gun? All of that has to do with prior choices, or maybe the choices that those who influenced us, such as our parents, or our governments, or our teachers, that has placed us in this moment. At what point do I start making informed choices about my next decision, about my next work? And if I know that my current decisions are already influenced by a criteria of decision making that is already flawed, already pained, already coming out of dis-ease and disorder, then perhaps maybe I should reconsider what that criteria is as I make the next choice and not automatically go to. But that's why this is such a powerful process, Nalima, because this requires a deep spiritual programming, reprogramming. In the same way, I can't change some things in my computer. I have to go to a computer programmer. I like to say that our spiritual program may actually require a greater service, a greater source of support, which is why we always turn back to our source of divinity, if you would, whatever that may be for you. So I don't want to leave people thinking that this is a mechanical process, because there's a tendency for us when we gather like this to look for the mechanics. Do this, do that, do this, do that. But in the absence of meaning, mechanics really don't work, right? Because we don't want to fix things, we want to heal things. Technicians and mechanics tend to fix. Healers tend to heal. And so this is a healing process as much as we're looking for the immediate fix. I
Wow.
caution people about looking for the mechanical process, but really digging deeper into the meaning of what we're actually bringing to our lives.
Wow. We have only 4 minutes left, but I would love to go longer if you're okay and if people want to
I'm
stay.
okay. It's just that I
Okay.
want to respect the time of your guests.
So peace building often focuses on dialogue between communities, but Ho'oponopono begins with inner reconciliation. In your experience, how do we know when individual healing is sufficient to create meaningful societal change?
Well, like anything else, if you plant bananas, don't expect mangoes. If you walk into the world and find mangoes in the banana patch, the seeds that you planted were the wrong seeds. Or you have to adjust your diet for what is now growing. It's relational. And so if the world continues to demonstrate something opposite of what we're planting, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we planting? What is that? What's outside here in this window didn't appear here yesterday. This comes from another time. That said, every forest I look at is not the same forest yesterday. The leaves that fall off that tree means that there's new leaves on that tree today. The question is the tree dying or the tree living? We have to do the same thing. When we realize that we're shedding and letting go of things, are we dying or are we growing? It's all a perspective on what we see as life being extended, continued, and enhanced, or one that is always in entropy, that's always decaying and dropping off. They're both, but it's really a focus on what we want to do. Is the forest decaying? Well, based on the brown leaves I see out there, potentially it is. But I also know that each leaf was replaced by another leaf, which means that tree is not concerned about the brown leaf as much as it is really grateful for the green leaf. I think that's where we are. Can I be grateful for the opportunity that comes with losing something from yesterday? What is coming to me as a result of releasing what I had yesterday? Um, we all understand that I can't place something in a hand that is already full. Sometimes I have to let go to receive what the universe has intended for me. Something like that.
Mm. Thank you. I think just listening to your real lived experience stories of, doing the Pono practice and then
Yeah.
seeing results, that itself is huge because otherwise people think this sounds just too esoteric, how is it practical or real? But you sharing with us a tradition that's ancient and that's worked and that works. So, we only get to know it when we try it, right? So we'll never
Right.
know if we never go. So just do it, go there, and then
Right.
then you'll know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a good question. Should we go through suffering as ways of purifying and keep accepting it?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. Say, how could divinity, God, or whatever we want to call it, allow that pain to occur? And it's only pain because that's how we define it to be, right? The growing pains of going from a 3-year-old to a 60-year-old, that wasn't comfortable, you know? But at some point in time, when we live in the joy of being in the moment rather than going through the pain, then the pain has value. We don't tend to look at pain as being valuable if we don't learn from it. Mind you, I'm not interested in pain. Nobody really is. But it is part of a growing process. And more importantly, it is part of a definition. So reframe, refocus, and define. And I think we will find that in many cases, the pains that we've experienced in the past with relationships and with physical ailments and diseases, at some point in time led to a condition that we can now embrace. And hopefully, with some degree of appreciation, begin to realize I am who I am because of that pain. I am moving forward because of that discomfort. And now I see the world for what it is versus what I thought it was, or potentially what it can be. I think it is a definition. Um, I've experienced physical pain. I've been in places where I did not intend or want to be. But if there is a prayer in Ho'oponopono that I've learned to live with in my lived experience, is to be in the right place at the right time for my good and for the good of others. If there's a prayer, I share that with all of you. To be in the right place at the right time for my good and for the good of others. And I will tell you, sometimes that place is not the place you want to be, but it's exactly where you need to be. It's exactly the place that serves the greater good that also serves you. But if we approach it from a very selfish place versus a selfless place, a place of aloha where I can give and receive, then all of a sudden that changes. The discomfort I had in my knee when I fell off a wall many years ago, did I want to break my knee? Did I want to go to the hospital? Did I want to leave? Of course not. But what it did was it changed my life. The ancestors, the kupuna, told me, humble yourself, take a knee, slow down for a moment. And at that moment, I was in the right place for my good and for the good of others, because I could have injured someone else. The pace that I was living at, the movement that I was going through, I was living in the blur, the thing that everyone talks about. You're in the right place, do all these things. But I could not take my psychological, mental, emotional, and physical foot off the gas pedal. So I prayed for it. And instead of me controlling things, I ended up on the ground with a broken knee. My life changed completely. No one else got injured, but things happened in such a way that it was better for me. Again, did I want pain? Absolutely not. But I got what I asked for. The prayer was to be in the right place at the right time for my good and for the good of others. And that's precisely where I was. So that's a cautionary note. As they always say, be careful what you ask for, but
Yes,
pray for
absolutely.
the goodness of all.
Yes. Next question. How can nature and animals help us in this process? We don't have to do all the work alone.
No. In fact, that's been our mistake, to think that we are alone. Yeah. In many of our traditions and the communities that I work with and am related to, the animals are considered relatives, not resources. A kupuna that I knew who was, uh, he cared for the fish ponds. We call him Levaia. He says, I feed fish and they feed me, which is very different saying that I raise fish to catch. His relationship had already acknowledged this reciprocity agreement. I give to them, and at some point they give back to me. It is a deeper understanding. So to call them the animals, or to call them the forest and the tree, and I mean them, the people, the spirits behind those, as something outside and separate from us, I think that's the challenge. My observation is that it seems that many people that subscribe to the idea of being kicked out of a forest at some point in our history versus those that have continued to live in relationship with nature have a very different relationship with nature. We embrace it, we understand it, we speak to it, we commune with it, versus trying to control it and order it and call it wild when in really we're the wild ones. And so it's all a matter of perspective.
Yes. We have some wonderful comments of gratitude for you, brilliant session, absolutely loved it. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much. And Amano is saying, it was wonderful. And he says, Ramsay is Ram say, Taum is total Om. Wonderful vibration of wholeness. Mahalo.
You're welcome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we have someone, Muniki Mohammed. He met you at a concert in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, and Uma has said very powerful, deeply grateful. So it's been, I have absolutely no doubt, truly transformative. You have reached a level of effortless genius competence with your work and how you share it. And that's a great gift for others. You say in a short piece what would otherwise take a long time to read or hear or, understand. So thank you so much. Thank you
It's been
so much.
it's been a pleasure, Ilima. Thank you so much. And I really mean this. It's really just a mirror. I'm just a reflection. So thank you for reflecting back to me.
Yeah. meeting someone like you is one of life's great blessings. And I want to acknowledge Kumiko and
Yes,
Hiroki-san and Junko for organizing the Japan Convergence. We sat on that bullet train for 2.5 hours and and look, here we are today. That's what
that's
happened with
right.
that conversation.
And that was the fastest 2 hours I've been on, considering it was a bullet train. So I'm glad it's brought us to this point in our
Yes,
journey together and with everyone else. And of course, those people that supported that conference, as well as our friend Douglas, who's here, and
yes.
Lena, who's also here as well. So thank you so much.
We're going to hear Douglas also on the last day, the 4th of August. So hope people will join us. But this podcast, video, audio is going to go out to many, many more people. So hopefully this will continue to build and we can revisit in some time, perhaps. Keep the
I look forward to
conversation.
it.
Yeah,
Hopefully in India or you here in Hawaii, right?
absolutely.
After all,
And
it's just an island. It's called Island Earth, and we're all in the same canoe, as they say. So
yeah, one of the ideas you and I discussed that arrived out of that 2 hour bullet train ride was what if we connect the Indo-Pacific, through Hawaii and India, and Hawaii is the navel of the Pacific, and
correct.
how this region of island Earth may have something to give to the rest of the island Earth.
Yeah, well, maybe we can end with that in mind. That, again, I think though it was given its name by a European source, the Pacific, the underlying meaning is peace.
Mm.
I would like to think that when the stomach is at peace, the body is at peace. So if we can bring peace to Hawaii and bring peace to the Pacific, then hopefully we can bring peace to the body called planet Earth. And what other better place to do this than in the land and the spirit of Aloha, where the ha, the vai, and the e, the water, the spirit, the life, and the air all comes together. It seems like a natural place to do this. Um, and perhaps shifting from the European concepts of peace and reconciliation that is going on in Geneva. What if Hawaii became the Geneva of the Pacific, where we demonstrated how to live in peace and in harmony, in the way our ancestors began to, uh, under the guidance of King Kamehameha III in the Hawaiian Kingdom, which was really about aloha. Everyone, it didn't matter what your ethnicity, your culture, but your spirit was, that you could be a subject, a member of that community. And I think that's what we'd like to see again. Uh, it's not so much about governance as much as it is about relationships. And so I invite everyone to embrace that idea that perhaps we can create and restore that island earth aloha in our islands called Hawaii.
And with a bridge to India, because India's spiritual destiny is to work out human unity. And we do
Absolutely.
know that long ago, all these lands were connected as big continent called Lemuria, right? So, wow, that
We're all related.
dismembered,
We're all family.
yes, and that
Our
dismembered
physical
continent.
DNA may be different, but our spiritual DNA comes from the same source.
Yeah, and that this whole thing about from partition and pieces to peace, right?
Right.
If we are part of a dismembered continent, what if the greater evolutionary arc is to move us into a reunification at this spiritual level, and how Indo-Pacific can be that place of holding the new peace for island Earth.
Yeah, and so I would add, as our conversation we had, the use of our words is a reflection of our thoughts, as one of my kupuna, Antipulahi Paki, would tell me. The seeds of thought are watered by the emotions of heart. Whatever you expressed on the life-giving breath of ha that comes through your teeth becomes reality. So be careful what you think, what you speak and what you do. And I like to think that what we're actually doing is remembering, a hyphenated word, remembering our future, which is putting things together that at one point in time came apart, which is the foundational principle of Ho'oponopono. is that we weren't created as separate entities, but we were created as one. And at some point in time, we were working our way back to that unification. And so this gathering we have here is a reunion of sorts. But to remember our future would be an interesting proposition for us to consider moving forward.
So maybe that's the theme of our gathering.
I look forward to it.
And, you know, universe willing, it will be in Hawaii. And then we will also have something in India. And so we continue building the new earth together. Right?
Yeah,
Make Pono.
that's right. If everyone thinks Pono, right? Operate from Pono. And Aloha.
Remembering the future.
Remember the future. That's correct.
Remember the future. There you go. So
Or
on that
remembering.
note,
It's a multiple thing. Thank you.
yeah, it's yeah.
To everyone tonight, thank you for welcoming me and allowing me to share these meanderings of my mind, if you would. And Elima, thank you for, guiding us this evening. Thank you, and for the invitation.
Thank you. It's been absolutely delightful. Thank you to all our listeners. And I know each of you carry this very, very in a very sacred way. And I can't wait to be in touch with you to see how we build this forward in the right time, in the right place, for the highest good of all.
Exactly. Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Aloha, hui ho, until we see you all again. And as one of my elders would say, we'll see you on the first chance we get.
And today is the 1st of August here. So there you go.
Aloha.
Aloha.